We're here today with three Venezuelans who are going to tell us their story about life under socialism. Dory, let's start with you.
Hi. Yes, here in this amazing country. But by the way, I had my first experience voting the day before yesterday, and it was amazing. God bless America. And well, I am so blessed that I had the opportunity to come here and to leave Venezuela, very sadly, because I didn't want to leave my country. I'm an attorney in Venezuela. I went to law school, to one of the best law schools in Venezuela. And well, then I did have a very good career. I worked for the banks in Venezuela until the socialism took over them. Then I was working for the judicial system, and then they learned that I was against the government and that I was singing. No, I signed some list against Chavez, and then they kicked me out because they knew that I was not a socialist. I was born in democracy. I grew up in democracy. I went to law school in democracy, and then I could compare what was living in democracy and what was living in the Cuban Revolution, because that is what we have in Venezuela, okay? The Cuban Revolution. We have more than 50,000 Cubans working for the Venezuelan government. And I said, well, is this the life that I want for me? Do I want to live in this system? No. So I came to America. Bare hands, okay, with nothing, because the government didn't let me take anything, okay? In Venezuela, we are not allowed, we don't have any access to any foreign money. So I had to leave everything there. I couldn't sell my apartment, I couldn't sell anything. And here I am, so blessed to be an American.
Well, you say you lost your job. Tell us a little bit more about that. How did you get the word?
They sent me a letter telling me that because you are, the name of that list was the Tascon list. Tascon was one of the congressmen, Chavez congressman, okay? And he did this list, and all the people in Venezuela that were in that list, they were, you know, pointed right away to be out of the government or any government office or, you know, anything related to the government. So yes, the president of the judicial circuit sent me a letter telling me, listen, you are not in our side, so your last date of work will be this date. And then when Chavez took over the banks in Venezuela, they also knew that I was not one of them. And one day, the legal president of the bank told me that he was a legal president of the bank, and he was not even an attorney. He was a military, okay? And he told me, listen, we know that you have a very good experience, that you have been working for the banks for more than 10 years, but you are not, you don't belong to our group. So if you want to stay here, you have to be a part of the Communist Party, and you have to be a part of us. And I told him, listen, I'm so sorry, but that is not gonna happen, never, okay? So, no, but we need you because of your experience. Yes, I know, but you can't force me because I'm free, okay? So you can't force me that in order to get a job, I have to be a communist and I have to be a party of the Communist Party that it was the government party. So, well, that was my last day of work. And then when I said, no, I have to leave Venezuela, unfortunately. And we began to have all the problems, you know, that now are worse. Now is, we don't even have petroleum.
In a country that has all kinds of oil, you don't have petroleum.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, why didn't you say yes? I mean, what's so bad about life under socialism that you said, well, I'm not going to take this bank job, I'm going to leave? Why didn't you say yes?
I didn't say yes because I don't believe in that system, okay? I can't believe in that system because that system wants the people to be following what they say and they don't let you speak. And for me, it's something basic that I hear. If I want to go out and I want to say whatever I'm thinking, I can say, okay? And in the socialism, you can't do that, okay? For instance, I couldn't say, even though I had good performance in my jobs and I had the numbers that they wanted me to have, okay? Actually, my numbers were over the limit. They said, no, you are against the socialism and that's the way they are, okay? You can't be here with us, even though your numbers are good and everything, but you can't be with us because you don't trust, you don't want socialism, okay? Having the opportunity to buy something that you want because you work hard to get what you want and like, for instance, an apple, and you can't go to something as usual as an apple. And that is the things that people here in America, they don't see, okay? Here you go to any grocery store and you have all the different kinds of apples that you want, okay? And it is normal here. Under socialism systems, you're not gonna get that.
If you had taken the job at the bank, kept the job at the bank, would you have had a pretty good life compared to the other people in Venezuela? Would it have been economically okay, comfortable?
No, not even that, because now in Venezuela, we are, professionals are underpaid by the government, and what the salary that you can get will let you buy some basic stuff, food, talking about food, but that's it, nothing else. It's tough. It's very, very tough.
It sounds like the main reason you didn't take the job and didn't stay in Venezuela really was not the economic situation. It was really your own personal desire for freedom and to follow your own way. Do you think that's true?
Yes, definitely. That was the main reason. The main reason, and also have a better quality of life in democracy. What we have to live under that dictatorship is not easy. It's not easy at all, okay? It's painful, it's depressing, it's horrible. I don't know what else to tell you about the system. It's something that when people come to me in America to tell me how good is socialism, my answer is the following. Okay, let's do why don't you go to live 1 week in Cuba, or why don't you go to stay 1 week in Venezuela, and then we can have a conversation to see how good is socialism. Just stay 1 week and then we can talk about it.
When did you leave?
I left in 2013.
And you mentioned you had to leave an apartment behind. Is that an apartment that you owned or rented?
No, I own it. Yeah, and I work very hard to get that apartment, and I pay my mortgage and everything.
So did you give it to somebody, or what happened to the apartment?
Yeah, my cousin is living there for free.
Ah, okay. So you still own it on paper.
On paper, yes, but I had to, I couldn't rent it because in Venezuela, renting is, it's a part of capitalism, and you can't rent. You can make money out of your property, okay? So, and there is, now the government has the system that if they know that people has property in Venezuela, and they know that person is out of the country, is living out of the country, the government let the people to take over an empty apartment or an empty house, an empty real estate, because the owner is living out of the country.
So that could still happen to you. They could say, well, you're not the real person who lives here, so we're taking the apartment. Could they do that?
Yes, yeah, exactly. That still can happen to me, even though I have this cousin living in the apartment, okay?
Yeah, well, it doesn't surprise me because I've heard one other story from Venezuela. He was a business owner. He built houses. And one day the government came to him and said, you see this house you just built? Well, it's not yours anymore. You can't sell it. You no longer own it. We're going to take it and give it to somebody else. And that's what they did to him. They completely destroyed his business, and he left the country too. So what you say about the government taking apartments when people leave the country, that does not surprise me.
Yes, that's what they're doing. And they have people in the surroundings, in the neighborhoods that are looking and that are learning who is who left, and then that information they give it to the colectivos, and they plan everything, how to take over and how to break in and all that.
So now they have a lot of informers.
That exactly.
Yeah.
Informers in the neighbors, or and they go into the buildings and they ask, who lives here? Is this apartment empty? Is this what is the people? Do you know? And they say that they belong to the government, and so people has to give them information.
Wow. Well, we've been doing this for some years, and one advantage of being in touch with so many people who lived under communism from so many different countries, I can now see points of commonality. That it's the same playbook in country after country. So one of our speakers used to live in Czechoslovakia, which was communist in Eastern Europe. And she told us all about the informers all through their society under communism. And you could never tell who was an informer and who was not. It was a horrible way to live, she said. Maria Teresa, please tell us your story about life under socialism in Venezuela.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for having us with you today. I live in Venezuela. I came here for holidays, for vacations, and now because of the coronavirus, I can't go to Venezuela because the airport is closed. But I have been living all these 21 years of communism, socialism in Venezuela as the worst nightmare I have ever imagined for my country. Especially because you know that Venezuela is potentially maybe the richest country in Latin America. We have so many sources of like petroleum, like iron, like coltan, uranium, gold, diamonds, you name it, whatever is a rich mineral, and we have it. We have an amazing weather the whole year. And how is possible that the richest country in Latin America has turned to be the poorest country in the continent? And not only that, what I believe is the most terrible thing is that Venezuela has turned to be a real threat, and a real Venezuelan system has put in jeopardy the peace in the whole continent, because it's not that we're living under the classical dictator or the classical dictatorship in Latin America or in the world, but we're living under a system where the government is dealing with terrorists, with the drug trafficking. Governments like Iran, China, Russia, Syria, Colombia, they have Cuba, for instance, who is the mastermind in all this project, in all this communist project. They have a really important role in Venezuelan destiny, political destiny. Venezuela is one of the biggest supporters in the continent of terrorism. And of course, the main target of the terrorists in the world is the United States of America. And that is something that American people have to take note of, because now at this very moment, Chris, the terrorists are not just in Arabia or the most terrible terrorists in the world are now, they have training camps in Venezuela, more than 25 training camps of Hezbollah, ISIS, Camorra from Italy, ETA from Spain, FARC from Colombia, ELN from Colombia, the Cubans, all of them, they are working from Venezuela in a hidden camp. So what is America waiting to take, to take care of this? It's not that we're living poverty, which what we are. We are dying because we don't have the proper hospitals to attend the people, and we don't have schools, we don't have electricity, we don't have water, good water for drinking. We have nothing to have a decent life in Venezuela. But beyond that, I think the most important thing is that Venezuela has become a big training camp for terrorists. Since when kids go to school, from a very early age, they start to teaching the kids that America is the biggest enemy you have. You're poor because of the United States of America. You're in hunger because of the United States of America. You don't have a home because of the United States of America.
Well, you're fresh from Venezuela, so tell us a little bit more about your life there. You said the hospitals are a problem, the drinking water is a problem. Tell us about your own life, your own experiences.
Well, I can start, Chris, telling you that, for instance, this show, this web program, we couldn't have it in Venezuela because we don't have proper internet. At any moment, it's cut off by the government. You don't have a regular electricity, power. You don't have water, good water for drinking. You don't have, anything, because there has been the government has disabled all the services in Venezuela. We don't have good transport system. We don't have, the hospitals are really a nightmare. Now that we're facing the coronavirus, I can tell you that we have less than 100 beds with the proper equipment to face such a terrible thing, such as the coronavirus, for instance. So what I believe is that we are almost facing a terrible situation in Venezuela, because people is going to go out of their houses no matter if, I mean, people is they're gonna care about the quarantine because it's a matter of dying of hunger or dying because of the coronavirus.
Well, all the news reports say that people in Venezuela are even going hungry, that they've lost an average of 20 or 25 pounds. They eat zoo animals. Is that true?
It's absolutely true. People, you know, I know a lot of physicians and nurses, friends of mine that they have told me that, for instance, at the hospital, it's very difficult to make a diagnosis because people is like weak. It's like they are under a spell and they can't talk, and that is because the low consume of protein, and people is like fainting. They don't have the strength because people in Venezuela is really dying of hunger. It's absolutely true. People is eating their own animals, their cats, their dogs. It's really a nightmare. You can't even imagine how terrible is the situation for a Venezuelan. Now we have more than 80% of our population living in poverty. I mean, they can hardly have one meal a day. So go figure how Venezuelans have to live.
Well, we've been hearing these stories for a couple of years now, and it just makes me wonder, how long can this go on? I know there were big protests, I know, but why haven't things changed? Why haven't people forced to change?
Because we don't have the guns. I mean, the army is with the government, and the government also has been, for all this year, has been blackmailing our people with hunger. You know, if you protest, you're not gonna receive the little food we give you monthly. If you protest, you're not gonna receive it, you know, and it's a matter of survival for Venezuelan people, and we don't have the strength. We are so weak now, and we don't have the guns, and we don't have the support of the rest of the world.
Well, back to a couple of things you said. There's a book called The Dictator's Handbook, and it says that dictators will use hunger as a weapon and keep people weak. And so they can't think about revolution because all they're thinking about is their next meal. Do you think that's true in Venezuela?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hunger is a very effective weapon, and they have been using that, and the people is really weak. And we don't have the strength. You can see how during this last year, all the protests have been going down and down and down because people is weaker every day.
You mentioned that nobody has guns. When did the government take away the guns from the people? Was it Maduro who took away the guns, or Chavez?
No, was President Chavez.
Dictator Chavez.
Dictator Chavez, yeah. He took all the weapons from the people.
We have another speaker in our Speakers Bureau who's grew up in Ukraine, and they had a famine occur there in the early 1930s called the Holodomor, where an estimated 7 million people died. And it began when the Soviets, the Russians, came, and one of the first things they did was take away the guns. And this speaker in our Speakers Bureau often says this is how, by taking away the guns, that's how 25,000 Soviets were able to control 25 million Ukrainians. So it sounds like, again, we're back to the Dictator's Handbook. One of the first things they do is take away the guns. Would you agree?
I agree, absolutely, Chris. That's, the best strategy from the communists. They take away the guns, and they can, they can push the people down, and, that's what we have. The blackmailing with hunger. They have all the weapons, and we don't have the strength. That's why we have been calling America and the rest of the world to make an intervention in Venezuela, because there is no other way to put away the terrorism in America if you don't take care of the problem in Venezuela. And they are not going, by elections, because they control all the electoral system in Venezuela. Cuba has had more than 60 elections and always the communists win. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous to think and believe that through elections, we are going to put the terrorists and the communists in Venezuela away from the power, from the power position they have.
Let's go on to Alfonso. Alfonso, tell us your story.
Yeah, my story began in 2017 when I was at home with my family, and suddenly came to our house like 30 trucks from the government, and they are called DGCIM, that it's in English like General Direction of Military Counterintelligence. So they took my uncle first. Well, they took me first, but they were looking for my uncle because we are not part of socialism. We don't think the same way they do. So they went to our house to take us away. So they took me first and they put me in the back of a truck. So that later they took my uncle and they grabbed us and they took us to Caracas, the capital. And I was all the time with my hands with handcuffs in my back. And so I was kidnapped by the government with my uncle. And my uncle is still in the prison at today's day. So I had like 5 days where I didn't see the sunlight, where I was being tortured, where I was being psychologically tortured. And yeah, it's a really sad experience that I had. I don't want to live something like that again. So I decided to leave my country. I went to Spain because I had some friends over there where they told me that I could had a really good job. I was gonna make money. I was gonna be safe. But when I went to Spain, I realized that I was in a socialism as well, where the actual president of Spain got reelected few months ago. I don't know, I think it was the last year. So I decided to come here because I didn't feel like secure, safe in that country. I had a bad experience in that country as well. So yes, I just wanted to say that socialism doesn't work in any country. Like, it's a really bad party that nobody wants to live in.
You say you left for Spain. How did you get out? Did the government let you go?
Yeah, because I have my grandmother, my grandmother born in Spain, so I have the nationality. So I was able to leave the country because I had a double nationality.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, that's why.
Can you share with us more about how you were tortured?
Yeah, when I was in that building, that is the principal building of the government in Caracas, I was in a room where I was with other militaries with me, and then every day they came at me and I had to be with my face down all the time, and they always came at me and punched me like in the face. At the second day they put a plastic bag in my head and they wrapped me with tape, and then they were always pointing guns at me, at my face. They were always telling me really bad things, that I was gonna go to prison, and they were gonna, I don't know how to say it. They were gonna kill me in the prison and bunch of stuff. I also saw an electric chair in front of me. They told me that they were gonna sit me in that chair. They never did it, thanks to God. But yeah, it was really bad. I didn't want it to eat in those 5 days, but they told me that I had to eat. Um, but I didn't have like hunger. And when I was thirsty, they gave me like yellow water, dirty water, and yeah, it's a really bad experience.
You mentioned showing you the electric chair. Is that what you meant by psychological torture, or did you
Yeah,
mean something else?
yeah, that and all the things that they were telling me all the day, really bad things, like I was gonna die, I was gonna be, I don't know, in a room with nobody, blackout. I was not gonna see the sunlight forever. I didn't even know what time it was while I was there. And yeah,
Well, were they just being mean, or were they trying to get you to confess, or what were they trying to do?
yeah, they were trying both things, to be means, because they like to be means. They like to torture people. They like to be mean with people. They like to see blood. They like to see people being tortured. So they also wanted me to confess things that I had nothing to confess. So they were just being mean with me, because I know that they knew that I didn't have information that they want. So yeah,
Did they ask you questions about your uncle?
yeah, a lot of them. And my uncle is still in prison right now. Man, yeah, and he's innocent, just like me. But I got out of that really bad experience, like out of the hands of the government, just thanks to God. I was blessed.
How did they find out you were not a socialist?
Oh, because we have a ranch in Venezuela, like a really big farm, where my grandmother had like thousands of, I don't know how to say it, like a lot of land being taken from poor people, like that.
Innovation.
Yeah, like
Invasion.
invasion from people that doesn't own that land, and the government wanted to give to those people the land that my grandmother owns for free. So that's why they knew that we were not part of socialism, because we have never been part of socialism, and they wanted to take everything away from us. They actually took our house, and they fucked everything up in our house. Like they stole everything from us.
Well, they say they do it to erase inequality, to make everyone equal. But the way I hear the story, Maduro is living pretty well, while the average Venezuelan is not living well at all. In the Soviet Union, there was a class of people under the leader called the nomenklatura. They ran the government, they ran the economy, and they did very well. They had separate shops, with better goods. They had summer houses called dachas out in the country or on the shore. So my question for you is, if they took your family's land and took the houses, and they take all this stuff and they try to make everyone more equal, is there a new inequality by the people at the top of the government living very well? What do you think about that?
Of course, there is no equality from the people in the government to everything else in the country, because they have everything they want. They are rich people, but they say that everyone has to have the same thing as everyone, but they have more than everyone, you know? Like they have whatever they want, and they want exactly the people that are close to them to be really good positioned in Venezuela, but everybody else has to be the same, not to have much things like much money, just to live day by day.
Can I say something, Chris?
Go right ahead.
Yes, of course, they want everybody to be equal, you know, but equally poor.
Exactly.
It's the equal distribution of poverty. That's what communism is.
Yeah.
But they live as rich people. And one thing that we have found out after all these years is that they are always, saying things about the United States of America as the evil empire. But I have realized that they can't be happy but in America. They are all living here, their families, their children, they're studying here, they have big mansions here. And how is that? It's a big contradiction. I mean, this is the evil empire, but they just want to live here. There is no other place on earth to live as happy as they live here. So it's true, they want people to be equal, but equally poor, everybody but them. And you know what they say, that communism is the equal distribution of poverty, and they just want to break your legs, so you have to say thank for the crutches. That's what communism is.
Are you saying that there are people in the Venezuelan government officials who own big mansions in the United States?
Yes, absolutely. And they have lawyers here defending them.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you about some of them, and I can tell you the name of the lawyers also.
Well, we'll skip that for today. Let's go on and see if anyone has any last thoughts, any final thoughts. Dory, let's start with you.
Yes, I would like to say something to the American people. Don't take for granted this country and fight for democracy, because this is something that you can't even imagine what is living without it, okay? Sometimes I think that Americans, they don't know what they have here, okay? And they are a little bit spoiled, to say it in a way. So live in this great country in democracy. Whatever else they are offering is not the way.
Let's go on to Alfonso. Any final thoughts?
Well, yeah, I think the same way as Dory. Yeah, just tell you guys, American people, don't believe in socialism, because it never works in any country where socialism has been. And yeah, I don't want people to live an experience as the one that I had, because feeling that you're gonna die, like you're gonna be murdered, like they're gonna kill you, it's really not good. Yeah.
Okay, a last word from Maria Teresa.
If you know us about someone who wants to go to Venezuela and live the experience, welcome. As soon as the airport is open, I invite anyone who believes in socialism to come to Venezuela.